let's jump straight into this explainer. Today, we're tackling what I like to call the cartographer's nightmare. We're going to explore how one massive, devastating global conflict completely shattered and redrew the world map, literally transforming sprawling, ancient empires into fractured, modern nations. Get ready, because the geopolitical landscape of the world is about to change forever.
Okay, here's our agenda, which will act as our legend to safely navigate the incredibly chaotic and shifting map of the early 20th century. We've got the global powder keg, the spark in Sarajevo, falling dominoes of war, a shifting world map, and finally, the bitter aftermath.
Section 1. The global powder keg.
Picture the world map right before 1914. You've got these massive European empires fiercely competing for global resources, basically driving the Industrial Revolution into overdrive. And this intense competition formally split Europe into two heavily armed rival camps. On one side, you have the Triple Entente, that's Britain, France, and Russia. On the other side, the Triple Alliance of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. The world map was literally drawn in these deep defensive lines, creating a super volatile house of cards just waiting to collapse.
Which brings us to Section 2, the spark in Sarajevo.
Let's zoom our map right in on the city of Sarajevo in Bosnia. June 1914. Suddenly, a single gunshot rings out. A Serbian nationalist who was absolutely determined to rip control of Bosnia away from Austria assassinated the heir to the Austria-Hungary throne, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, right there in the streets. Now, initially, it was a localized tragedy, right? But because of how tightly woven that map of alliances was, it was the exact spark the world literally couldn't afford.
And that leads us to Section 3, the falling dominoes of war.
That single assassination instantly activated those massive alliance pacts we just looked at. It's a textbook illustration of the unstoppable momentum of war. Watch the dominoes fall. First, Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia. Second, Russia jumps in to support its ally Serbia. Third, honoring their alliance, Germany declares war on Russia. And finally, Britain declares war on Germany to protect neutral Belgium and France from being invaded. In just a matter of weeks, the borders on our map entirely lit up with conflict. No going back now.
What followed was tragedy on a staggering, frankly unimaginable scale. Over 4 grueling years of brutal trench warfare, from 1914 to 1918, 20 million lives were lost. 20 million. This conflict consumed entire nations and stretched across multiple continents. And right alongside that grim reality, another 21 million were wounded. With over 40 million total casualties, fueled by crazy new industrial weapons and the sheer number of countries involved, the war tore apart an entire generation. It really makes you realize that this whole geopolitical map-making game wasn't just abstract lines drawn on paper. It was an incredibly real, bloody, and deadly reality for millions and millions of people.
Moving on to Section 4, a shifting world map.
As the war dragged on, the map of global power drastically fractured and shifted. By 1917, a massive socialist revolution over in Russia prompted them to sign a ceasefire with Germany and withdraw entirely. But check this out. The exact moment Russia left, a formerly neutral America stepped right into the fray to join Britain and France, severely battering Germany's remaining, totally exhausted forces.
And finally, Section 5. The bitter aftermath.
Ultimately, an exhausted Germany had to accept defeat. In 1919, the surviving powers gathered to draft the humiliating Versailles Treaty and literally tried to stitch the global map back together, and it changed practically overnight. Ancient empires like Austria-Hungary and the Ottomans wiped completely off the map, fully destabilizing global identities and economies. Germany lost massive amounts of territory. Out of all this rubble, smaller, independent nations were carved out, and the League of Nations was established to, allegedly, prevent future conflicts.
Yet amidst all this frantic redrawing of borders, there was a really dark economic reality. The quote reads, "The weapons manufacturers and arms traders of Britain, France, Germany, and America made enormous gains at this time. While millions bled out in the trenches and ancient kingdoms were erased, the true mundane beneficiaries of all this slaughter were international arms dealers." It's kind of chilling. And the consequences of the Versailles Treaty went far, far beyond just drawing new borders. The crushing compensation demanded for the war, extreme poverty, widespread unemployment, and deep humiliation were heaped right onto the defeated nations. This massive, widespread dissatisfaction was heavily exploited for profit by German industrialists. It created this incredibly toxic atmosphere of aggressive nationalism, directly paving the way for a dictator like Hitler to grow in power and eventually ignite the Second World War.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, and we see how the redrawing of this map actually just seeded the horrors of World War II, we're left with this really haunting question. Did the treaty designed to end all wars actually guarantee the next one? It's something you absolutely have to think deeply about when considering how we conclude our conflicts, and how the borders we draw on a world map today might shape the tragedies of tomorrow.